Hi, my name is Steve Jordan. I'm with Core Cloud Systems. Basically, I've been with Core for a couple of years. The Core Cloud system was kind of my design. We started out about 5 years ago building the product. We partnered up with Core. Core has had a focus on where do we go next. You know, we've been doing AP functionality now for, what, 12, 13 years? Who's the oldest? Who has had Core TimberScan for over 5 years? Anybody? Yeah, so we've got 30,000 plus users. We're growing, you know, a couple of hundred customers every year. It's been a very good product for us, and we kind of pioneered that entry functionality, that entry point validation, which you're going to hear me talk about today. We've streamlined the process so you have electronic touches versus moving paper around. So all of these skills and things that we built by developing that product, we started looking at other operational documents, how we could extend the functionality of the product. And so today what we're focused on right now as a big initiative is to eliminate data entry. We feel like through the process, we did a seminar 2 days ago where we actually showed a completely paperless process. And what's interesting that we found, me and Bernard, who's one of the owners, actually found that we do the TimberScan tune-up. So if you've had one, you might have had me or Bernard on it. We started calling our customers, just talking to them, and we found out that a lot of our customers still have file cabinets. You know, anybody have a file cabinet? Yeah. So, you know, so you're not using all the functionality of the software. And then at the other side of the coin, the efficiency aspect of it, you lose some of the efficiency side. So what we try to do is we're trying to introduce new products and things that basically take and streamline the efficiency of that particular product. So what you're seeing today and what we're going to look at today is a series of products, and I'm not going to do PowerPoints, I'm actually going to use a system. And it's a series of products that we've developed inside the cloud, inside the mobile device, inside of our mobile initiatives, and also some of the TimberScan enhancements that we've done as well to basically eliminate data entry, and that's what our goal is here today. So if you look at this map, if you can appreciate this, basically you guys have been over here at the Core on-premise, okay? If you have our product, this is the on-premise product that ties into TimberScan. It's on the same server, right? And that's what we do accounts payable routing with, okay? If you have ventured into trying to eliminate some data entry, you may have purchased Capture. Anybody have Capture? Okay, so that's our OCR tool. If you were an early adopter, you may have given up on it. If you have a new release within the last year, we've done some new technology to make the capture issue about a 95 to 98% effective rate. So we've actually enhanced that product. We also saw that a lot of our users were dragging emails into TimberScan, okay? And they'd have to open up the email box because, hey, guess what? We were telling you a couple of years ago, get your vendors to email the invoices to you, right? So what we did is we developed a product that we could actually automatically pull those emails into TimberScan. So we eliminated that process. We're releasing here in the next couple of weeks where we tie these two together where you can pull the invoice out of email, okay, automatically run it through Capture, and automatically drop it into AP entry of TimberScan and have the data entry done for you. And that's what we're doing. We're tying these two products together. So if you think about the process of capturing your invoices, if you can get your vendors to send their invoices through email, then you don't ever see the paper. The other thing that we've done is we've actually partnered up with Avid Exchange. And with Avid, what we've done is we've processed the other side. So now for about 67 cents, you can send that payment to your vendor, capture the receipt into TimberScan and have it matched up with your invoices, but you can send that payment into your vendor electronically. So you don't have to go use your check stubs and all that. If you use Create a Check, you'll notice I'm not really good on that side of the house, but the Create a Check function, if you're already using that, you might already be used to capturing your checks automatically, but now you can actually pay your vendors like that. I came out of heavy civil where we were doing 30,000 invoices a month. So you can imagine, we paid everybody, we were doing 1,000, 2,000 checks a week. So we paid everybody through electronic terms, and we told them, you no longer get a paper check. As a matter of fact, we will not accept your invoice unless it's in an email. So we took the paper completely out of the process. The efficiency rate of our AP processors, we went from 80 million to 600 million overnight with Katrina, okay? And we actually did it with 4 AP processors as a specialty company. Our volume went up tenfold, and our AP girls could actually process more, almost 4 to 5 times the volume that they could do manually. So you can see the impact. If you're seeing growth, and hopefully everybody is, and it looks like it's going to be here for a while, if you're in the business of getting more and more invoices, this is kind of like giving a ditch digger with a shovel a backhoe, because you can start getting more efficiency, and you know how hard it is to get people in accounting and construction. So this is one of the tools that we have. This is our new entree. This is our cloud-based tools. It's called Core Cloud, and what we've done is we started out with forms, and we saw the opportunity that because what we did with accounts payable invoices and routing them around, we said, well, why not do that with HR forms or equipment forms, you know? And we wanted to give the power of the building of the form to the user. So you could build whatever form you want, you know, and then we said it needs to have entry point validation, because if I'm doing a credit card receipt, I need to be able to do a lookup for the cost codes or the GL accounts, right? So we needed that entry point validation. So we made these into smart forms, which are really apps, okay? And in the cloud system, when you see the system in just a second, you'll realize that you can create any form. You can take all of your forms in your office and turn them into electronic forms and mobilize them and put them on somebody's smartphone, okay? And that way they can enter the form, and what we added to that was a routing component. So if that form needed to be approved, it could be routed in the web, or it could be sent directly into TimberScan and routed with our routing function there. So we give you options on workflow, okay? So now you can start re-engineering some of the other processes in your company, so that basically you can start looking at HR documents. You can start looking at equipment documents, trip expense reports, credit card receipts, field purchase orders. All of those things play to where now you can put them on a mobile phone. They have complete integration with TimberScan, and also they have complete integration with Sage. So when you see some of the stuff today, you'll see how that actually lays out. So we, inside of Core Cloud, we not only have the forms creation, but we also have routing for workflow. Now, then we said, you know, really and truthfully, we're kind of like the UPS truck. You know, the brown truck delivers the boxes, but the content's the boxes. And I came out of IBM, so basically I said, well, let's just store all the data. We validate it, right? So let's store it in our SQL tables. That way we can use it on the other end for other stuff. So for instance, if you do remote time capture, I can take that validated information, route it through here, automatically take the timesheet and drop it into AIM as a document management document, and send it to Sage for payroll input and reduce all that payroll entry. Same thing with a credit card receipt or an equipment movement form. So all of that now can be basically integrated, soup to nuts, all the way through Sage. Because we store the data, and I call it every tit and tittle. I'm from Louisiana, so I can say that. But basically, we store all the data in our databases, and we allow you to be able to report, create CSVs, send it down to the SQL table we have on your TimberSync if you're using our product. If you're using Sage Paperless, you can still send the data in. So all of this stuff here, we keep the data so that basically we can take it and do stuff with it. Okay, does that make sense? Cool. You know, in Louisiana, we have these little dogs we put on our dashboards, and they're bobbles. And when you're going down the highway, it's just doing this, you know. But if you're on a rough road, it's doing this. If you're doing this, I'll stop and ask you, do you not understand? If you're doing this, we're good to go. And I'll keep going. All right, so that's kind of the form side. The good news, if you have TimberScan, the forms tool is free. We've included that just like we did AIM. We've included the forms tool. You still have to buy the users, and you still have to buy the installation and training, but we give you the subscription for the forms tool. okay? And that's a new addition if you're a TimberScan user today. You have that as a new opportunity. Now, what I want to do today is kind of give you some examples of how all this works. But what's happened is that we've actually started with the form, and I'll just give one example, which is our credit card. We used to just take the credit card receipt, the guys would take a picture, they'd code it, and send it in. And then we used our reporting tool, okay, to report it, drop it into an Excel spreadsheet, organize it, and then key it into the AP transaction, right? Because that's what you typically do, and match it with your reconciliation that you get from your bank. We decided that let's go the whole distance. So we built the credit card and expense reconciliation into the system to add to the forms. So what you're going to see here is this. This is a dashboard of the product. Now, what's unique about it is that you can take and organize this. It is a true portal. So basically, as you will tell as we go down the road, and I'm not going to say it directly, but this is the start of our vendor portal where they can pass their invoices through the portal and it'll automatically go into TimberScan. Okay? Got a little bit more work to do there, but basically this is a portal. It scales. If you're hooked to the internet, you can launch it from any device. So if you're on an iPhone or a phone, it's going to look like that. If you're on a pad, it's going to look like this. But I'm going to keep it in desktop mode so that you can kind of see it from here. But you can see I can organize, I can turn these tiles off, I can turn them on, I can shortcut tiles on my menu options. So if I want a sub to be able to submit his pay app, I can have him with one button, submit pay app. And he opens up a form, attaches his pay app, and it comes right into AP entry. So this is where we're going and where we're actually headed to. And so you'll see that from here. But let's just kind of talk about the credit card entry. Now, if I have technical difficulties, then I'm going to switch back to the desktop. But as you can see right here, this is my Android phone. This is our brand new, if you're using our CCS product now, this is our 5.0 version of our mobile app. So this is a prototype. And this particular form, this phone creates itself based on the profile of the user. So if I only see certain jobs and I only have certain forms on those jobs, that's what I see in my mobile app. If all I need is vendor files for this job and I only need cost codes for this job, that's all I have to synchronize to. And we just included our new synchronization tool so that the syncs are done in less than 10, 15 seconds. We do what we call incremental syncing. So all the processing is now in the background. So if you've used to using our old mobile app, that was one of our contentions with our customers, and so we changed that. A side note, we spent close to $1.5 million over the last year. We went from 4 developers for CCS, we now have 20. We're worldwide, so we have a 24/7 development time. We've committed to this process. We recognize that this is going to change the way you do business. And we can come in, and if we price it right, you guys can look at problem situations in your office and be able to do that. And we're committed, and that's part of our core associates commitment. So we used to be known as TimberScan, and if you notice, everybody has core associates. We're more than just AP routing. So I hope you pull that. If you don't take anything else away from here, take that away. We do a lot more than that. So in this case right here, this is my system. So I'm going to come over here, and you can see these are the apps that I have. If I want to do job pictures, I have field purchasing, I got an expense report. We deliver the system basically out of the box with these different types of credit card forms. You can always change them, okay? You can change any form that you have. So in here, I'm just going to do the job cost coding, and you'll notice right here when I go to the code information, if you can appreciate the guy in the field, that's probably the least literate, okay? Because that's your problem. He's the guy. Because you guys in here could do this tomorrow. I could teach you one time, you'd know how to do it. It's the guy in the field. You see how clean this is? We get some of you guys say, well, y'all could do this a lot more, put more information on the screen. No, you can't. You got fat-fingered concrete guys that need to be, that can't see, and so you have to have all of this to where they can do that. All the pop-ups, it's touch, We even talked about this the other day. I had a brainstorm. I was watching the thing the other day, and the app was asking the question, and then he voiced back the answer. Well, I can voice back the answer here, okay? And I said, how ingenious, because I can ask the question because you just read the question. So I can even get it to that level, and we're going to go looking at that. This is the vendor, and basically when you come over here on the vendor, and I'm just going to type this in. Let's say this is Podna's. This is a barbecue shop in Baton Rouge. And I can come over here and put in my amount, and let's say I spent $30 on ribs, and I'm going to lie and tell them that this was lunch. Whoops. Let me get over here, $30, and I'm going to say this was lunch with client. And then at this point in time, now I use it because I go ahead and take the picture of the receipt, put it in my gallery, okay? And so when I come down here and I hit this, I have a choice of either snapping it right then and there, or I can go to my gallery. So I'm just going to go to my gallery for this purpose, and it's going to go through there and pull up my pictures. And let's say that's the receipt that I had here, and I'm going to double click on it, and it's going to go pull that receipt into my picture. Now, at this point in time, this might be all I asked my guy in the field to do, and write on the receipt what you did, okay, and submit it. We'll take care of the data entry, we'll take care of the coding, but this is basically how this works. So if he knows how to code, when he gets over here, he can come in here and put in his line amount, right, $30. When he goes to the job, he can pick up his job. Now I have all the jobs there, but I can filter that. When he goes to the cost code, I can say, well, that went to toilet parts. Okay? And that's cost coding. So you can see if I know how to code, I'm going to validate the code. Now he may pick the wrong one or she may pick the wrong one, but it's still a validation, right? If I don't know how to code, I could have submitted the form right then and there. Does that make sense? All right, now from here, the rest of it is a signature authorization. Now at this point in time, generally what I'm going to do, and I would come down here and just route this. And when I hit route, based on who you are, what job you're on, is going to determine who gets to get this particular credit card receipt to approve it. You with me? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and back out of this and get back to my desktop. Once it's routed, it's going to send me an email and say, Steve, Johnny's submitting a credit card receipt for XYZ, blah, blah, blah. I click on the link in the email. It brings me to my inbox, and that credit card receipt's right here. I can edit the coding. I could distribute the coding to multiple cost codes. I can go look at, of course, that wasn't the one I just did, but I can go in here and look at the receipt if I want to. And then when I'm done with this, I can then come here and drop my signature on here and my approver signature on here. And then basically it then gets submitted to the credit card system, the reconciliation system. So just in general terms, it's what we call a proactive design. That means that I use my card, I hit the receipt and put it in my gallery. I might gather 3 or 4 of them, and then I come back when I'm at home or I'm on the airplane. I can go in there and put in my receipt, do my forms, get off the airplane, it syncs itself up and sends them out where they're supposed to go. Y'all with me? Yes?
So is there a way to turn off the individual approval of each receipt and then dump it in there and then they submit just the entire?
You could do that. Yeah, we actually have a grid function. It's not part of our out-of-the-box product, but we actually have a grid that we do use for expense reports so that expense reports come into an approval grid. So they could actually send those into that grid and collectively go in, and then I would get a notification, or maybe not. I just know to go in there and approve all my credit card receipts that have been submitted.
So it basically could take the place of Concur.
Well, yeah, exactly. We are coming out with a brand new credit card reconciliation component. We have the Concur and the Expensify method already built in, along with my method. I'm a little selfish, but at the end of the day, if you're using Concur and you like their methods, we went ahead and designed the method because we can do it.
I'm not married to it, I just
Yeah, what's cool is the price. We're a lot less than Concur, But that's where we're trying to fit. That's the niche. Concur gets to be kind of expensive, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's based on the numbers of reports you
submit. And that's the tick concept. Anybody that does a ticks, that's old school. You got to get out of it. You got to get to a flat rate because those ticks will add up. And I just replaced the Concur system. It's $7,000 a month. And the guy told him it was only going to be about $450 a month. But they had 100 cards, and the guys were using them all day long. So it gets expensive. So what we did is We went to our methodology, but in the new right that we have on our credit card program, we have the concur method that's going to be part of that process. Okay? That good? So now, once this is actually submitted, then this is where it takes over, and this is the cool part. Okay? How many of y'all do credit cards in here? Okay, you're going to appreciate this. The first thing you're going to do, and now it's not just credit cards. You can do P cards, you can do fuel cards, Home Depot. You can do that. You can run anything you want through here. You come over here and you download or import the file, and that's you pull it out of Visa or MasterCard, whoever you're going to pull it. It's a 6-column Excel. You save it, and then you come over here and you import the file, and it drops it in as a transactional process. Over here, these are all the transactions that you pulled in. Over here, these are all the receipts that got submitted from the field, okay? First step, you touch this reconcile button, and it goes in and it tries to match what it can. Then once it can't, you go manually look at them, and it might be dates or something like that, and you can go fix them up and try to match them manually. If you don't have a receipt for a transaction, you ding the cardholder. It sends a form to the cardholder, tells him that, hey, I need you to at least, you don't have the receipt, tell me what you spent this on. Verify, proof of delivery or whatever, acknowledgement of receipt. If you don't want to do that, it's the owner, then you can go create the receipt for him, because we're creating a receipt backup, okay? We just added this feature, which was kind of interesting. If you fly Southwest and you do the advanced, you try to get bumped to the upper tier, it's 2 transactions on the credit card receipt, but generally the guy that submits the expense report only has 1 because it's on his statement. So you can now distribute multiple transactions to 1 receipt, which is kind of cool. And then once you've matched up this whole column and you have some footing issues up here, you can manage the footing and all that. Then you come over here and you touch this button. It automatically takes that transaction, and you have 3 options to set up if you want. We can either push the individual receipts into the system, okay, as an individual invoice with the vendor being the vendor that you bought, and we can have validation there, or it could be the Amex vendor or the Visa vendor. We can push it over there as 1 transaction in summary or in detail. And the image is the statement and all the backup behind it. So we eliminate all that data entry. Just by that 1 touch and that 1 entry of the receipt, everything else downstream, all the way through getting it into TimberScan, or if you're in paperless, we don't have the ability to do the AP entry, but we can send you the document and the transaction. And I'm working with them to do the import too. But and I used to be one of the founders of paperless, so they're in Baton Rouge with me. And so we're trying to get that done. But outside of that, if you're in TimberScan, we automatically take that transaction and bring it in as an AP entry, or if you've approved it here, because see, you have the ability here to come in and edit the transaction. So if the guy's coded it wrong or something like that, you can go in there, look at the receipt, change the coding, whatever. You have full control in accounting so that you can process this thing and get it over to TimberScan, and you can even send it to final approval. And you guys that aren't TimberScan users, that's the last step of before it gets posted into Sage. Yes?
Can you edit the transactions that come in off of the statement, because we have multiple companies on one statement?
You can filter or edit.
Can you also not use the statement vendor name and put like our parent company, that's who we pay by?
You could do that. Now, what she's asking for is not what we call our standard out of the box. Now, when you talk to any of the other vendors that are down there today, there's a big difference between us and all of them that are cloud-based. They're multi-tenant. And you're saying, well, what's that mean? That means that if they're going to do a modification for you, it has to apply to everybody else, because everybody uses the same software base, right? My system is single tenant. It's just like your Sage, we run single tenant. So if you want me to have it whistle Dixie every time it comes in, no problem, we can do that. We do a lot of customizations where we had a client, just a crazy idea, is they want a purchase order with every credit card receipt. So what we did is we spawned an automatic commitment with every approved credit card receipt. So instead of having to go in, key in a commitment into Sage, we literally created a purchase order document, sent it into Sage as a commitment, so that when the credit card came in, it would match itself up to the commitment and reconcile itself automatically. I thought that was kind of crazy, but that's what they did. So that's what we did for them. So being single tenant is huge. And as I go down the road here, you're going to understand why. But this is basically the process. Now, what happens on credit card is that this is an example, and probably the best example of our application of our core cloud system. Entry point validation, okay? That's where when they're doing the forms, they hit a button and it filters and searches Sage. Now, you don't have to do that automatically, manually. That's done in your TimberSync in your TimberSync system. We're already doing that with Sage, with our TimberScan system, right? So we take that same system and we bring it to the cloud so that we have that automatically for you. We deliver it like that, okay? The same thing with credit card is you enter the information once. Now you may have to bird dog it down the line or put a control or so in place down the line because old Steve, who's over 60, doesn't want to code nothing, So you got to make those provisions or you're going to fire me, and I'm going to say fire me and we'll see what happens, But at the end of the day, that's what you deal with in the field. So what we have is we have control points that you can place so that you can get this thing in, because all that information is valid. And I can walk it all the way through Sage and get it paid without having to touch the data or enter the data twice. Does that make sense? Y'all get that? All right. So that being the case, let me take you through the world of purchasing, okay? So why not a purchase order form? So here, I can go through here. I have question types that are like auto number, okay? And I have question types that are auto number. I can come in here and have the date, the vendor. And again, I do this on a mobile phone. I'm not going to keep going back to my mobile phone. This would look, on the phone, it would look like this here. So the entry point looks the same, okay? It's just that I'm going to do it big so you guys can see this. I can come over here. It's going to auto-calculate the amount of the PO. It's going to come down here. This is who is requested. The cost code, you remember, that's all valid information, so I can type that in and it's going to go pull up all my cost codes and things like that. As I go through here, basically it's going to come down. If I want to attach a quote to it, I could do so. I can drop a signature on here for approval. Okay, so the workflow and how this is going to work is entirely dependent on how you want that to happen.
Can you have one person enter the purchase order and have like the project manager or superintendent approve it?
Yeah, so take that same, remember the credit card. So what's going to happen is, I'm not going to assign it here. The project manager could also be a purchase request without a vendor. Hey, I need this, 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 and this. And that goes to the PM or the buyer. And then the buyer takes it into our, we have another system for purchasing and inventory control or material management. But at the end of the day, yes. And it would come into that home screen. So down here you see the purchase order. Now what's really kind of unique about this is that you can also define, okay, the output. So it's like crystal reports. You can design what you want that form to look like on the back end of this thing. So when it actually goes through here, and this generally goes quicker. This in here it's a little bit slower. But you see here, I can design my purchase order to look however, I can make it look just like your purchase order now. I can put the steps on there if you want, terms and conditions on there if you want. I could have different PO. We even have a client in Hawaii. They have change orders, purchase orders, and their material purchases on e-forms, okay? And they can go in and it's an actual contract. So what they do if they're doing like a subcontract change order or a contract to the sub, they fill in the information on the form, and then when it produces this, they took their contract and dropped it in so they can do it all out in the field. And then when it comes in, we just update the commitment system and say whether it's a subcontractor or it's a purchase order. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes?
Is this actually a crystal form, or can we make our own crystal reports?
We don't use Crystal, we use DevExpress, which is just like Crystal, but it's more form-oriented as opposed to being report-oriented. But it really works just like Crystal does.
So if my IT guy learned how to use it, could I have him make me some custom report?
Oh, definitely. That's part of the initial training is we teach you how to build your own forms and do your own outputs. And unless you just want us to do it, and we don't mind doing that either, but you pay for it. But yes, you're exactly correct. DevExpress, it's the best report writer out there, so and you can go to Dev Express School, because you can do a lot of really cool stuff with it. But you can see right away, now, once that purchase order is submitted, then down here in my inbox, I already processed my purchase order. Oh, I didn't send it there. I could have sent the purchase order to my inbox here. You remember that's the inbox for the approval, and I drop the signature. Or we have a purchase order approval grid. And you remember I told you the credit card grid? This is the expense report and approval grid for that. And we define the columns up here based on the form design. And if you notice right here, here's a purchase order that I submitted. I can come down here and look at the line items and see what was bought. I can come over here and actually look at the purchase order, so it drops me the purchase order here so I can see what it looks like. I can come over here and email this to my vendor. So if I want to send a confirmation PO to the vendor, I can do that from here. I can also come over here, and once I approve it, then I can come down here and create the CSV. And if you're using purchasing from Sage, I can import it into your purchasing tool. Or if you're using commitments in Sage, I can send it straight to commitments. Now, what's cool about our system, not only does it do that, but we also take that purchase order image and send it into TimberScan as a supporting document. You see where I'm going? Well, what do you think the next document is? The receiving ticket. The guy's on his phone, stuff comes in, fills out the receiving ticket, snaps makes a copy of it, submits it. That goes into TimberScan as a receiving ticket. So when you get the invoice in, right, you bring it into AP entry, a little light on supporting documents lights up, you hit that button, and it shows you the PO and the receiving ticket, and you can match it, and you got a 3 or a 2-way match, depending on how far you go with it. Does that make sense? Yes?
So this receiving ticket, is the vendor available, so it's tying it to the vendor?
Uh-huh. Ties it to the PO and the vendor. See up here? So like if I go to the vendor, if it's ACE, see how it picks a vendor? And then if it's a job, so like if if you do AP entry, think about it. You're doing the line item entry, you select the vendor, so it's going to filter the POs for that vendor. And then when you get to the job line, you put the job or the commitment in there. It's going to automatically come down here and it's going to filter for vendor and commitment or vendor and job. Does that make sense? Cool. Okay.
And you may have already said this, but the routing on these documents can be different than the TimberScan routing?
Oh yeah, it's web-based. It's web-based routing. So basically, like for instance, if it's a job purchase order, I can take that and in the setup file of your job cost master file, it'll auto read the project manager. So any purchase order generated from that job will automatically go to him for approval. Versus, if I'm on another job, it'll go to me. So you can direct the routing based on who the project manager is. Make sense? Cool. The bobblehead, you remember? I did that in Austin, and I had a huge crowd, about 200 people. And I started talking like this, like I'm from Louisiana. And it caught their attention, and I did the bobblehead thing. And the guy that was filming got behind me, he came up afterwards, he said, "You had everybody in there doing this." At the end. So I try it all the time. Sometimes it works. Okay, so that's the purchasing scenario. So let me tell you the cookies and milk, okay? And I'm just touching on this because I didn't plan on really going into this here in this session. We have in our foundation products, and we've spent 4 years now. I started developing it almost 5 years ago with 2 or 3 clients that didn't like Sage purchasing. They didn't like Service Manager because they had to do some crazy stuff to get the invoices to work and get them into TimberScan and all that. So I started rewriting and redeveloping it, but I came out of heavy civil and piping, and so I know inventory. And the buyout system we knew was going away. So we have developed and are still in development. We have about 10 clients that are nicely working with us to get to that point. But we have a material management, buyout, work order, sales order, dispatch, equipment system that has work in light manufacturing. So if you're a sheet metal person in HVAC, I can handle the HVAC process and do the sheet metal work. I also have in the equipment side, it's not tool track, but we can do movement reports, we can track and push our payroll time into, for timekeeping. You'll see that here in just a minute. But we have started developing this. Well, the cool part of that is if you use our advanced purchasing tool, okay, we create two methods of purchasing. One of them is what we call material-based. The other is called just traditional purchasing. Traditional purchasing is a vendor, you put in the items and you send a PO to them, right? If you're material-based, your guy in the field is saying, I need this, 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 and this. Now, it could be part of the buyout, and it's focused on just his bill of material for his job, or he might just type it in. I need lumber, nails, and this. That goes to the buying person, or the PM. He has got a worksheet. He takes a worksheet, sends it out for bid, finds out his best price, okay? And then they can come in there and he can, on that worksheet, he can select the vendor, okay? And if there's 2 vendors or 3 vendors, he can put all the vendors there. He touches one button, says create PO, automatically sends a PO to the vendor, automatically sends a commitment to Sage, automatically sends the PO transaction, just like we do here, image to TimberScan, okay? The receiving comes in, the guy in the field, now he receives off of a PO. So he's receiving the individual items, right? When he submits it, it goes straight into our system, creates a receiving transaction, sends an image of that plus a file to TimberScan. In TimberScan, if you use our capture tool, you OCR the invoice, match up the PO and the receiver, we eliminate all the data entry. There's none. So now I can take a 50-line PO, let you manage that, manage a 50-line PO in our system for back order purposes and all that. I can send it into commitment as a 50-line PO, but instead of fighting through that on AP entry, I eliminate all the entry. Because based on the receiving, I can basically bring that in and make that happen. Does that make sense? A little further down the road, on our work order system, basically what you have is this. Is on the worksheet looks like this. So, and this product can be completely customized. 80% of it out of the box is going to do everything you need. But if you want it to whistle Dixie, or you want this column to look different, or whatever the case may be, doesn't matter. We can make it happen. And we have the developers. We're almost up to 40 developers now worldwide. So we can run 24/7 development. And we have the ability to be able to turn and spec out and write you even a custom program. And we've done that. We've got several projects in play right now for roofing companies and people that are based on this product, but we literally customize specifically what they did under $100,000. Now, that may sound like a lot of money, but go find a developer to write your custom system. You'll be at 200 real quick. We can do it for half the price. Sometimes you use what's out of the box because it's good. But anyway, this is what you're seeing on the inventory side. The purchasing side is real straightforward. It's web-based, it's mobilized. So when you use it, you can do it. We also have the whole allocation function. So when you set up locations for jobs, you can manage it from that standpoint and then be able to come in and have a bill of materials. So you can take your Timberline estimating or whoever you're using, you can download the BOM from bill of materials from the estimating system into a location. You can test it against your inventory, allocate what you have in stock, automatically create the picking ticket and send it out to the warehouse, all right? And then automatically create the POs for the vendors that you need to order, or at least give it in a worksheet so the person can come over there and do the buyout and the estimating and so on and so forth. Now, remember I told you we're still a portal? What's coming in the summer, maybe a little later, is our bidding system where they can actually come to the portal. They get a request for a quote. They'll come to the portal, put in their pricing, and you'll have a grid that shows what you asked to buy, what your pricing is across the top, and as you pick what you're buying from, it'll auto-gen the purchase orders and do the things that you need it to do from there. So, I'm not going to go too far into that, but that's where we're headed. So you can see that this isn't just something we decided we were going to do. We've spent a ton of money, and we've really decided that this is a direction we're taking our company, and we're fighting through it. If you were one of our early adopters, we were a house on fire last year because we didn't realize, well, they didn't, I'm picking, but we didn't realize when they brought me in there, they called me chaos because doing this product was very difficult. And we had to beef our staffs up and spend a bunch of money but we're now down to a point to where we pretty much got it honed down on how to deal with it. And we're starting to really jazz up these products so that they're going to be really functional in the future. Quick side note, this is our work order. We're talking about purchasing. I don't want you to get too far off of base here. But basically here, when you go into the system, we have our full work order system. Now, our work order system has a lot of flavors because HVACs are different than service like oil field service or whoever. So, or you might be an industrial HVAC where you don't do a whole bunch of trucks and things like that. So we can complement all of those transactions and so on and so forth in the system. But basically what you're going to see here is on the work order side, we can literally customize this whole situation. So the first thing you got to think of is, what's my workflow of the work order? Okay, starts out in the field, mobile, or it starts in dispatch, gets assigned to the field, right? Depends on how you do that. Walks through the process, and so what we have is across the top here, these are your work processes. So in this one, this customer, they create estimates. Then the estimates, they send out the proposals to the customers and all that. They come back in, and this is all done on iPads now where they can do that right there on the spot with the customer because that's what they wanted. And then they, once it turns into a work order, then basically that same document goes into a work order status. And then you can then assign material and things like that with it. And then once it's done with that, it's reviewed at completion, and then it goes to billing. And we bill the customer, and then we send it to Sage as an AR billing transaction. Okay? Now, when you go down and you see this, all of this information at the top is user configurable. Okay? That's the header of your work ticket. What do you want to see? These guys do everything by zone. They're a roofing company. So they do everything by zone so that when they do like probably 15 estimates a day and they got their estimators, they assign to zone so they're not bouncing all over the areas that they're in. So we had to design a system that managed that. So you can see how we can pinpoint workflow with code to make it work the way you want it to work. This is where it really gets fun. The labor on the ticket right here, when you put in the labor, and these are customized headers, automatically goes to our payroll grids. So I can capture billing, the work order billing, I can capture that and put it on a work ticket. Remember I told you about material? I can list my bill of materials that I need. If it's on hand, and it'll tell me. If it's on hand, I can click this and it automatically sends a transaction document with a picking ticket to the material warehouse so they can pull it. If I need it requisitioned, it automatically goes to purchasing from the work ticket. And if I need to return it, I can do it. This is the estimate. In their example, when they go to create an estimate, they want it to be able to come over here, and because they do roofing, their estimates have all this verbiage that they want to be able to go add stuff to and so on and so forth. So when they do the estimate, they can come in here and fill out that information. They can put in a cost. We're going to eventually tie it into their SOVs so that we can actually do the cost coding and stuff like that. But then basically here, whenever they come in, they can print the quote, and we made the quote look just like their system. And they've allowed me to do this today to show. So, but you can see I can do all sorts of different things with this particular system in the work order side. This is scheduling. So if I schedule something here today, I can go in and it goes on my dispatch board. So your guys, instead of having paper clips on the board, they now have a dispatch board that they can go look at and see all that. And then down here, the notes, and this is where it's kind of cool. The e-form note system that we have is the guys can go out on the job, let's say they're doing a repair, they can snap a picture and then have it come into the system and then be able to go in and attach it to the notes of the work order. So all the information, if the customer calls in, they can key it into notes. Whatever transaction happens, I can document it in the notes so that now the work ticket has all the supporting information that I need behind it. And then of course I do the approval on site if I need it. I can do the approval on site. I can do the billing. And then this information right here, when we set the work order up, if you'll notice right here, this looks real familiar, doesn't it? My system, you start the work order, and if they agree with the order, we automatically create the job, cost code, estimate, and everything in Sage. Does that make sense? So you can kind of see right away that's that's a real powerful feature that we actually have in the system from that point. Oh, yes?
Is that available now?
Yeah. It's out of the box it has everything that I'm showing you right here is generally done. It's just the work order systems. What we found is if you want something out of the box, cheap, buy sales manager, service manager, because theirs is pretty much what you get is what you get. We're in the next level. So if service manager can get your job done, that's great because you're going to save some money. And I'm not trying to scare you away, but there's Lexuses and then there's Volkswagens, and we're the Lexus because you can change and you can get. We're gonna fit to your situation. You don't have to fit to mine. That's how we kind of, unless ours is just a better practice, we may argue the point, but that's how we design the system because we feel like a lot of our Sage users need this new functionality. They need to have a robust, engine in front. The ERP systems are great. They're old, tested, and true. It's just that front-end mobile and all the stuff that's out there. You're seeing a lot of companies coming out there saying, hey, we do this, but they don't deal with the intimate processes, and so you're having to conform to that. Well, when I built this tool, I've installed systems for years, almost 40 years. And I got tired of having to go, well, our software doesn't do that, but if we do it like this, we can do this. I said, I want to design a system where if it really means that much to you and you're willing to spend $2,000, $3,000, you can have it. And that's what this is. Make sense? Good. All right, so a couple more things, and then we'll just do some questions. We went through field purchasing, time entry. Now, there's a whole bunch of guys that have been in the field a lot longer than us, okay? So when I looked at time entry, I said, here's the thing about time entry to me is that every time transaction to me is a data transaction, okay? It could be billable. It might not be billable. You might have different methods of time entry. Like if you go into a company that has 3 or 4 divisions, one division may do it this way, another division does it this way, and so on and so forth. So when we designed the system, a couple of things that came out from the very beginning is that, and I'm going to show it to you backwards, is that we wanted a system that I could come in, and I'm just going to select some dates out here, and I could build a grid. Let me get the data, there it is. If you can see right here, I can build a grid that allows me the ability to approve time transactions, a time transaction, okay? So these could be submitted on a clock in, clock out form. It could be submitted from a crew-based timesheet. It could be submitted from a driver of a truck who's putting in his time. It could be submitted from a work order. Remember I showed you all that? All of that time gets collected here. If you're in payroll, okay, you're sitting there and you're at your controller desk. You're watching all this as it's posting into your system real time. If you want to go look at it deeper, you can drill down to it deeper and go look at it. But you're seeing how time comes in. You can see whether it's approved or not or whether it's verified. We have different statuses of this. We can also take this grid and filter it by supervisor or by project manager. So if I'm a project manager, I can see this just for my jobs. So all I have to do is approve that time. But if my guy happened to work 4 or 5 jobs that week, I'm only approving the time that hit my job because I burst that time out into transactions. So what I've done, I can do this. I can also do it on an iPad. Phone's a little tough because the real estate's not there. But I can do this on an iPad sitting at Starbucks. Okay? So the approval functionality, this is what I wanted to be able to have. Now you notice on the top I have extras, cost codes, pay type. But I can also go in there, if you're union, I can add up to 10 different columns here to collect time on. If you're doing T&M billing, I can put your customer's PO or your customer's cost code on there so that if it's going over to the billing reports, there's no double entry. Y'all with me on that? So this grid is customizable, and we call it configurable because you just turn it on, turn it off, okay? That's the front end. Now what's this? Yes.
Can you charge an employee to a piece of equipment? For example, if they were repairing that piece of equipment?
Yes. Let me see. Let's see. GL equipment. Do I have equipment on here? Okay. Yes, I can. I'll show you that. I'll show you that when I get the timesheet. Oh, there it is. No. Yeah, here it is. Is that equipment? Nope, it's employee. It's not on the grid, but it can be there. If you use it for equipment, you can do it for equipment. I'll show you how we do equipment and when we get to the timesheet. Okay, so doing this, I can also handle per diem. And I can put per diem rules in there. If the guy didn't work over 4 hours that day, he doesn't get per diem, okay, or something like that. So you can build those things up. You can use the custom fields in job cost or in payroll to be able to organize your per diem so we can track that in the grid. But now this is where it really gets kind of interesting, because when we started doing the time entry side, it really got to be pretty interesting, because the first person that we actually did, and this was a while back, they came to us and said, we want our guys to do a daily report, and we want time, we use HDSS, and we don't like this, and we like to have the cost codes across the top, and so on and so forth. So what we did is we built a timesheet that was a daily report. This is where the guy in the field is going to come over here. He's going to pick his job. He can pick up his date. Now, this is a daily time transaction. He could copy yesterday's if he has the same crew that he had today. And then he can come in here and create. And this first tab is all the daily transaction information. And that's configurable. So you can ask whatever questions you want. The time over here is basically where they can enter the time. Now, watch this. So I can either put a crew in here or an employee or multiple employees. So let's just say I'm going to come over here and I had this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy working on my job. We worked regular pay. I didn't have any equipment. Here's your equipment question. But let's say I worked 2 cost codes that day. I did this one. Honestly, I cannot read this, so I don't know what I'm putting up there. And say we work 4 hours here and we work 4 hours here. I just entered the time for my day. Now, imagine if you had 50 guys on your crew and you had 4 cost codes, 4 extras, and maybe some other things. And that's where we spawned this, we call it fast entry. I went out in the field, the first implementation of this, the guys came back and said, we're entering 100 transactions. So it says we're doing paperwork, we build buildings, we don't enter time. So I said, well, what do you want? He said, let me bulk enter the stuff and then come back and edit it. So that's what we did. So in this case here, they can come in here and bulk enter, and then if they need to go modify this guy's time, they can do so. In your case, if they need to add a piece of equipment, it reads the equipment file, he can add the equipment to it. If the equipment time is different than his time, you could create a new line with just that piece of equipment and bring in the time there. You see what I'm saying?
So is that saying that they charge the job and the piece of equipment?
Yeah, this one here is getting charged. Because that piece of equipment is going to parallel this user, like maybe this is a crane operator in his crane, okay? So you can assign the equipment and the time at the same point, and it bursts into 2 different approval grids.
Well, so what that does is add a revenue entry to the job for that piece of equipment, not coding to the piece of equipment cost-wise. To both the piece of equipment and a job at the same time?
At the same time.
It creates the payroll cost to the job and then equipment revenue to the job.
Exactly. And
That's what he's asking, and what I would be interested in also is whether you can create a payroll expense entry to a piece of equipment.
So that means you're entering the equipment through the payroll time transaction, right? Instead of...
You're not coding to a job.
No, so like we have a mechanic. The mechanic works on a piece of equipment, but it's in the equipment yard. It's not out. It's not at a job. It's just in our equipment yard.
Okay, I'll show you how we do that. One of our clients adds the equipment cost codes because you can have up to 12 of these cost codes, drop downs. So if you do have a piece of equipment, you can just pick that cost code, and because it has an EQ pay type, it knows how to handle, remember I told you I can customize this, it knows how to handle that equipment and where to post it. So I can do it without having it go to a job. I can have equipment cost codes instead of having job cost codes. Now, we also have another tab, which I'll show you in a minute, which is a pure equipment tab. So instead of posting equipment with the time, you can just go straight out and post the equipment and then have it set up to where if that person used that piece of equipment, you would just have a tab where you put the person's name and the piece of equipment. So these tabs are customized. We can build a tab for whatever we need it to do and how we want to collect the time. Does that make sense? Well, and I'll show you that. I'm going to open up a couple more timesheets to show you how that works. But this is basically, this right here is what we call our daily timesheet. And it's designed to where you put your cost codes across the top and you can drop them in like this. And then you can handle the per diem here. So if you have per diem, it's only going to give you employees that were on that job. So you can do that like that. So it just manages it from here. But you can see this particular timesheet, what it does here is that it's basically a daily report that has time included in it. And then we can take and build time, like we do production. Like you might want to have a production request. Like we have some guys that actually have a production tab where they can actually do this, and we drop it into a SQL table, and then they use Office Connector and they mix it up with their Sage data, and they have daily dashboards that have production. So remember, our tool is a data collection tool. We just happen to collect time, so for us, it doesn't matter what you want collected. We just got to put it into a tab. It takes us about an hour to configure a tab. That's how we built the software. So you tell me how you want it. And
Probably also set up your yards as jobs. And
Yeah.
assign it to whichever particular yard is working on it.
yeah, it just depends on what best suits for you. And sometimes we do have to sit down with the Sage rep and say, hey, what's the best way to do it? Like a lot of our clients, they say, well, our field doesn't know what straight time overtime is. We don't want them to deal with it. Well, you can set Sage up in certain situations to automatically compute overtime. You know, or we've written programs to automatically compute overtime, shift differentials, and things like that. So we have the capability of doing that. It's just what I'm showing you right now is our out-of-the-box stuff. This is what you can buy this just, without any customization. It's a single price, and that's how we have it set up. So let me just give you an example so that you can see what's going on here. This is a client that he just did a testimonial for us. Let's see, Stenstrom, QA, Core Cloud. That's wrong. Stenstrom. This particular client, and he's allowed me to talk about his company. His particular situation, they have an excavation division, and they have a couple of hundred employees there, and then they have a plumbing, and I think they have electrical and mechanical. They wanted to have 3 timesheets. They wanted to have a timesheet where the guys in the field filled out their own time on their smartphones. So no more get rid of the timesheet situation. They wanted their employees to do their time. So they have a form that basically does this. It can be untethered. They don't have to be connected to this. So if they go into an industrial plant or something where there's no stuff, they can do it. 4 questions. They enter their name, date, project name, job number, and then basically the task performed. They can duplicate it if they work multiple jobs, and then it calculates it and they submit it. Okay? The second timesheet they have is for their truck drivers. Their truck drivers can come in here, and basically they do their own time. But we actually capture on the truck driver report, if you notice here, the driver, total hours worked, the odometer reading, because in our equipment module, we can do PM reports based on odometer reading, so we update that. The trailer that he happened to be pulling if he had, what job, cost code, extra, what truck number, type, query, dump site, loads, hours, foreman, comments. Okay, and he can duplicate this, so if his dump truck's going to 2 or 3 different places. He can also come over here and pick out his defects for DOT. So if he has an issue like lights, windshield wipers, whatever the case may be, the truck driver can put that in there. And then of course you always need a signature for DOT purposes. This particular timesheet does 3 or 4 different things. The first thing it does, if there's an issue, it automatically spawns a transaction to his work order system. That's in Access. He had written it a while back, and creates a work ticket for the guy to go out and replace the windshield wipers on the truck. And then he manages it from there. The second thing we do is we actually take that time information, we bring it into a daily report, okay? And when we bring it into the daily report, on the daily report function, okay, we have the loads. So all his dray tickets are there. So he can attach all his dray tickets and put that in, and it drops in the loads on that daily report, that first tab of that daily report. It puts the time on the time report for the employee. It puts the equipment on the time report for the employee. You with me? And then he does some other stuff with the loads to it. That goes into another system that reports how much, some production stuff. Okay, once that's done, then what happens is that his foremen come in every day, they go do a daily report, and I'm going to show you one here. Let's just do this one. This particular guy comes in. You can see what's been added to his daily report. He didn't have any loads that day. When he comes over here to the time tab, he goes and gets entries. Okay? Once he gets the entries, it goes out and pulls all those time transactions that his guys did. It pulls the truck driver's time and brings all that into that for his job. So if the guy went to 3 or 4 jobs, he only gets his time on his job. He can come down here, and I don't have any time on here. Then he cost codes it across the top. So he's still doing his job, which is cost coding the time. He's just getting his employees to key in the time. You with me? Okay, now that time here, basically then he takes this particular timesheet, he routes it to the PM for approval. This supervisor that's doing this, not the PM. The PM approves the actual timesheet, which is right here. Then what happens is that information is then posted to the payroll grid, which I showed y'all earlier, right? The payroll approval grid. Now, the equipment gets posted to an equipment approval grid. So I'm going to go pull over here. Now, this might answer some of your questions, and this is some of the specifics that we do. If the payroll time entry is posted through payroll, okay, then it got posted to the daily report. If the time entry for equipment, if the equipment time entry is going to the equipment module for revenue capture and some of the other things that you post to it, it's going to go to and get approved here by the equipment manager and get pushed into the equipment module. Does that make sense? So that's how we can do things. Because we can tailor the system down, we have these tools that we can literally bring this stuff in and make this happen and have it set up to where, you know, if I just need an equipment tab, I can put an equipment tab up there and have the guys enter it there. The best way to do it is if I can incorporate it with some other entry, but if I can't, you just have them enter the information. You know, if I want to capture production, if I need to read something out of, I'll give you an example. We're doing a deal here where the guys, she wants to have in the daily report when they put the cost code, you remember like on here, let me drill down to this one right here and see. So like if on the daily report here, when they go into the time right here and when they pull down the cost code at this point, what they wanted to have underneath here is they wanted to pull from Sage the budget and how much left is on the budget. So the guys in the field can see that information right there real time. And that was a simple sync. You know, we already synced it up, so we just pull it into the system. We've actually pulled in multiple applications into one form. So it gives us a lot of flexibility on how we can do things. But hopefully what you've seen today is a little bit of a smattering of where we're headed with the Core Cloud product.
What about so payroll more on the compliance side? You need to generate a time card for audit purposes. How does that work?
Okay, so those are user configured. Okay, so if you want the time card to be specific to the daily report where it's a crew-based timesheet, all of that then automatically gets submitted into TimberScan AIM. So for instance, if you have an individual timesheet, you can take that individual timesheet and as it goes through the cycle and it gets posted and submitted, then the image of that timesheet goes into Sage, it goes into TimberScan, and it basically gets stored and indexed in our AIM product. Now, it can also be regenerated here. So like if I come over here and I go into forms, and I'm not sure I can actually show you this here, but if I go look at like the daily truck report, if I pull the PDF, let's see what it looks like. Yeah, this is our standard form. This particular form hasn't been formatted yet. This is what comes out of the box. But basically, and this is a QA site, so it's not in there. But basically what it is that I can actually recreate the form because I have all the data on this side of the house. But if I need it for T&M billing or backup for something like that, I send it into AIM. And in AIM, we have a new feature that's coming out this next week that basically is like our inquiry feature. So you can put together a PDF packet with all those timesheets attached to it. Okay? So just to close out, just kind of want to show you a couple of things here. Again, if you look at the system, you remember I said we store all the data. So if I come in here and say, you know what, I need the receipt of this radiator shop that I went and used because the radiator's broke, I can come in here and type in radiator, and it's going to go show me all the credit card receipts that I used, that I put into the system, and it's going to give me all the answers. So if I say, yep, this is the one I'm looking for, I can read it and say, yeah, that's the one I need, and I can turn around and automatically generate the PDF on my phone and hand it to the radiator shop and say, look, there's for my warranty. So as a user, I only see what I submitted, but it's all cloud-based, form-driven. So you can do that in the system out of the box. We have advanced search that you can go in and search any bit of information in the system. You also have the ability here on reporting, and this is where it gets kind of cool because out of the box, and I'll just show you this right here, out of the box, let's say I take those purchase orders and I want to go in there and take a look at my POs. When I set the form up, I make the questions reportable or not. And as I go through here and I pick what I want to see, I can hit put in my dates and I hit apply. And it's going to go into the system and it's literally going to go pull every transaction down here that's a purchase order. So all of that information that's getting entered in the field and sent into commitment is all right there in front of you that you can go pull out and either create an Excel spreadsheet with it. You can organize it. So if I wanted to organize it by vendor, I could do this. And if y'all have used inquiry in our TimberScan product, you know if you use that feature, it's the same grid functionality. So I can come in here and filter it out, you know, get it to where I need it to be, and then I can create an Excel spreadsheet, or we can do custom work here. So I can send, like for instance, so you may have a selection here and you might want to send it into some other system. But it allows every tit and tittle of information we store, you can go report on. Make sense? And then the ease of transaction functionality, when you go in to create a form, it's all a wizard. Like if I want to go look at that expense report form, when you set up the form, you set up the categories and the questions. So I can teach anybody. You don't have to be a computer person to do this. So you can create a form in about 15 minutes and have it deployed to your guys in the field on their mobile phones, even untethered if they resync within 15, 20 minutes. Okay? So you can do that yourself. What's really cool is in the whole process of this, we have the XML mappings where basically if you have AIM set up, we can take the workflow of the document so that when it's submitted, it'll automatically flow to AIM so you don't have to scan and index it back into the system. Any questions?
No.
Yes?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Is this going to be something available like for a guy like an iOS app?
Yeah. This came from the Android store that you saw when I was doing it here, and then we have an iOS app too. And if you don't do the apps and they have internet connection, they can just do it as our web mobile. It's because it's web-based.
So you said like all this stuff goes back and automatically creates a commitment, time entry goes, how does that actually automatically do that, or does it create an import file that somebody now needs to import into Sage?
Yeah, so right now for payroll and purchasing, it's an export-import. You could do a macro if you wanted to automate that function, but we're real encouraged with what was announced yesterday or day before, where Sage has finally figured out that it's okay to let people get into their application. So we had some meetings already with the guys, and so we have some entry points like our payroll. Like they do it for HH2, why don't you do it? Let us do it. You know, we're on the same level of, and we've been there longer. So they're actually opening up. The new management is a huge blessing for all of us in here. I'm going to tell you that right now. I've had to deal with Sage for many years. I sold version 1, so you can appreciate it. It's kind of getting back to the old Timberline, which is great. And if they'll open up the architecture, which is how everybody else does it now, then what she's saying is it's a two-step. You have to export and then go import into Sage. I'm an old accountant, so I like that because I can check the reject files and all that. But we already do that with AP. So we're asking them, and matter of fact, I got to come up when I get back to a list of my APIs that I want to push my stuff in directly.
Are they making an API for 100 contract?
Yeah, actually, we kind of held back. We built our own, but we were real leery because we were updating directly into the files. That was actually, to us, was a big announcement because all of this stuff now today, they have APIs to where I can mobilize just about every screen they have in Sage 100. So if you wanted to put the daily report screen on a mobile phone, I can do that. So I think this year you're going to see a lot of changes in that.
It seems like with this, we could do a lot of reporting and kind of customizable reporting. Is it gonna be possible to do some customizable reporting within TimberScan and load reports in there?
Yeah, there's a, TimberScan is still, from a standpoint of AP, it does AP and it manages AP data. What you're gonna find is because TimberScan is localized SQL and it's validated information, we can take this data and drop it into TimberSync at the same time, and then you can marry up your Timberline or Sage data, and you can do, like if you have Office Connects or Tableau or one of those tools for reporting or Crystal, and you can write some pretty cool reports and dashboards. Yeah, that's still not, it is what it is. Now we're probably gonna have some sort of a BI. We kind of debate about that because a BI tool, there's a lot of good ones out there. Event One has some cool stuff, Office Connect, you got, what's the guy's, Antera, if you have seen there, the Antera stuff is great. And we're just like going, well, do we really want to be there? Because they're way ahead of the game. But what we can do is shuttle data down there, and it's valid data. So that if you marry it up with, say, a commitment report that comes out of Sage, you can validate everything there and have some pretty cool dashboards generated for that.
Yeah, just, it's very segregated right now, so you can run information on expenses in Timberline, but you're missing anything that's currently sitting out for approval in TimberScan, so trying to get that reporting kind of together.
Yeah, you need a TimberScan tune-up. We have done that. Yeah, just do a work order through the portal, and I do them, and I'll show you how to do that. We've been doing that now for about a year, and I'll show you how we do that. What you're wanting to be able to see is all the data in TimberScan, whether it's been posted or not. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, we already have that. Yep. Okay? Any other questions? Cool. 12 o'clock. Y'all hungry? Last day for me.